December the 19th, 1941, 0600 hours. Alexandria Harbor, Egypt. 6 Italian frogmen sit in British captivity. 8 British sailors lie dead. 2 battleships rest on the harbor floor. A tanker burns. A destroyer lists. In the next 90 minutes, the balance of Mediterranean naval power will flip. Where the entire Italian fleet failed for 18 months, 6 men riding slow-running torpedoes nicknamed pigs succeeded in a single night. This is the 24 hours that broke the Royal Navy in the Mediterranean. No fleet, no battle squadron, no control, just cold water, shallow graves, and the question nobody in Whitehall wanted to answer: how did they get through? British convoys choke Axis supply lines. Rommel starves in Libya. Every ton of fuel, every shell, every replacement soldier drowns before reaching Tripoli or Benghazi. The Royal Navy Mediterranean Fleet holds Alexandria. 2 Queen Elizabeth-class battleships anchor there. HMS Valiant, veteran of Jutland. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the ship where Germany surrendered in 1918. 31,000 tons each, 8 15-inch guns, symbols of British naval supremacy. Admiral Andrew Cunningham commands from Queen Elizabeth. His fleet strangled Italian convoys. Sank Italian cruisers, 1 at Taranto, 1 at Cape Matapan. The Regia Marina cannot touch him, cannot reach him, cannot stop him. HMS Barham, torpedoed by U-boat 331 on November 25th, exploded, 861 dead. Force K, the crack destroyer and cruiser group, sailed into an Italian minefield off Tripoli on December 18th. 3 ships gone. The Mediterranean fleet bleeds. Cunningham needs his battleships, needs them operational, needs them visible, needs them projecting power while his fleet crumbles around him. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the United States Naval Institute Proceedings, February 1956 edition, featuring Commander Luigi Durand de la Pen's first-person account, published 4 years after his release from captivity, cross-referenced with Vincent P. O'Hara and Enrico Cernucci's peer-reviewed analysis in Naval War College review volume 68, number 3 from 2015, and corroborated against official Royal Navy casualty records archived at Naval History. Net and declassified British Admiralty reports examining Italian Special Operations units. Now back to the information. Veteran of Spanish Civil War submarine operations, commander of the Decima Flottiglia MAS underwater weapons section. 3 cylindrical containers bolt to Scirè's deck. Inside each container, 1 Siluro Alenta Corsa, slow-running torpedo, 22 feet long, weighs 1.5 tons. Top speed 3 knots, battery-powered electric motor. 2-man crew rides astride, compressed air tanks for breathing, detachable warhead packed with 670 pounds of explosive. Range 15 miles. The Italians call them maiali, pigs, because they're slow, stubborn, and nobody wants to ride one. After dark, Scirè rendezvous houses with a lighter from San Bartolomeo torpedo shop. 3 maiali load into deck containers. Scirè sets course east. Destination: Leros, Dodecanese Islands, Italian naval base in the Aegean, where the strike force waits. 10 men board a military transport aircraft. 3 operational crews, 2 reserve crews, flying to Leros. And the men know the target: Alexandria. They know the odds. Extremely problematical return. That's how Commander Ernesto Forza phrased it when he called for volunteers. Return is extremely problematical. Every man raised his hand. Maiali number 221, Captain Antonio Marceglia, naval engineer. His second, Lance Corporal Spartaco Shergat, 21 years old, from Istrian Koper, petty officer diver. Maiali number 223, Captain Vincenzo Martellota, construction court officer. His second, Sergeant Major Mario Marino, petty officer diver. Maial number 222, 3 torpedoes, 6 men, 2 battleships as primary targets, 1 aircraft carrier if present, backup targets, cruisers, tankers, whatever floats. The crews transfer to Scirè. The submarine has been at Leros since December 7th. Borghese briefs the crews. Intelligence reports Queen Elizabeth and Valiant anchored in the eastern commercial harbor. Boom defenses, anti-torpedo nets, patrol boats circling, depth charges dropped randomly. Security tight. British codebreakers at Government Code and Cipher School broke Italian C-38M cipher machine. Admiral Cunningham received warning before December 17th. Supermarina has some interest in Alexandria. No details, but enough. Enough to tighten security. Enough to increase patrols, not enough to know when or how. Review target photos. Study harbor layouts. Memorize escape routes. Check breathing equipment. Test diving suits. Adjust ballast on the Maiali. The mission window is narrow. Weather must cooperate. Moon phase must be right. Destroyer traffic must create an opening. Everything must align. December 18th, 1941. Evening. Scirè approaches Alexandria, 1.3 miles offshore from the commercial eastern harbor, submerged to 49 feet. Current position, approximately 5 nautical miles from the naval anchorage where the battleships rest. 2030 hours, 8:30 p.m., launch time. The reserve crews, fully suited, emerge first. Physically exhausting work. The maiali chambers are underwater. The reserve crew opens the hatches. The operational crews board their pigs. Surgeon Midshipman Giorgio Spaccarelli, one of the reserves, overexerts. Collapses unconscious on deck. Sub-Lieutenant Luigi Feltrinelli discovers him by accident. They drag Spaccarelli inside. Worse, Spaccarelli left the exit chamber ajar. Water floods in. Scirè takes on water. The crew seals the compartment. Pumps engage. The submarine survives. The 3 maiali release, drifting free. Della Penne, Marcellia, Martellotta. Each crew alone. Radio silence. No communication between teams. Each pig navigates independently to separate targets. Boom gate closed, steel nets strung across, patrol boats crisscross, searchlights sweep. The maiali wait, submerged. 15 feet down, electric motors barely audible. Della Penne checks his compass, adjusts heading. Bianchi clings to the back. They wait. 2200 hours, 10 p.m. Luck arrives. 3 British destroyers return from patrol. The boom gate opens, the destroyers pass through. The maiali slip in behind them, riding the wake. Invisible in the propeller turbulence. The gate closes behind them. They're inside. The electric motor dies. 15 feet underwater. In enemy harbor. Surrounded by patrol boats dropping depth charges. The torpedo is dead weight. Della Penne and Bianchi push, manually. 1.5 tons. 15 feet down. Toward HMS Valiant. They reach the anti-torpedo net around the battleship. Della Penne dives to check clearance. 55 feet. The net doesn't reach the bottom. They push the maiali under. The safety line snags. Della Penne's diving suit tears. Cold water leaks in. They're through the net. The maiali won't restart. Still dead? They push toward the battleship's hull. Toward the mooring buoy. They surface, briefly, gasping. Bianchi breathes pure oxygen from his rebreather. Too much. Oxygen toxicity. He faints. Floats to the surface. Della Penne is alone. Under the hull, 15 feet down. He can't. The anti-torpedo bulge blocks access. The bilge keels interfere. He cannot suspend the warhead from the bilge keels as planned. He gives up, drops the warhead on the seabed, directly below Valiant's bow, 15 feet under the ship. Not ideal, but functional. Sets the timer, 0600 hours detonation, 6 a.m., 3 hours from now. He surfaces, exhausted, hypothermic. His suit is torn. Bianchi floats unconscious nearby. What are you doing? Della Penne says nothing. Bianchi regains consciousness, says nothing. The British assume correctly. Take them aboard HMS Valiant, the battleship they just mined. Captain Charles Morgan interrogates personally. Nothing. The Italians give nothing. Morgan confines them, below deck. Forward hold, in a compartment, directly above where the mine rests on the seabed. The irony is perfect. The Italians don't reveal it. They wait. 0200 hours, 2 a.m., 4 hours until detonation. They navigate to HMS Queen Elizabeth. 55 feet of water. Anti-torpedo nets surround the battleship. They go under. No problems. They position the maiali 5 feet beneath Queen Elizabeth's keel. Suspend the warhead from the bilge keels as trained, exactly as planned. Shergat manually places the limpet mine, secures it, sets the timer, 0600 hours. They detach, scuttle the mail, surface, 0430 hours, 4:30 a.m. They swim to shore, exhausted, hypothermic, but free. They walk through Alexandria. Wetsuits under civilian clothes. Posing as French sailors, broken French, shrugs. The city sleeps. They reach the outskirts, heading for Rosetta, 40 miles northwest, where the submarine Zafiro will extract them. They make it to Rosetta. Egyptian police arrest them. Suspicious behavior. 2 days later, December 21st, police transfer them to British custody. Searching, wasting time. Fuel running low. 0200 hours, 2 a.m. They abandon the search, change targets, spot the Norwegian tanker Sagona, 7,554 gross register tons, moored near the battleships. 4 British destroyers rafted alongside, refueling. HMS Jervis among them, perfect target. 0600 hours. They surface, swim to shore, reach land, walk through Alexandria, Egyptian police checkpoint, arrested, both men, transferred to British custody. All 6 frogmen are now captured, but the mines are set. The timers tick. 5:50 a.m. Della Penne and Bianchi sit in their forward hold cell. They know the charge will detonate in 10 minutes. They know 800 men sleep above them. De La Pen requests to see Captain Morgan. Guards bring him to the captain. Morgan demands information. De La Pen speaks. Your ship will explode in approximately 10 minutes. I cannot tell you more. Morgan demands location. De La Pen refuses. Morgan orders him back to the cell. Below deck, directly above the mine, 800 men remain aboard. Morgan cannot evacuate in 10 minutes. Cannot move the ship. Cannot do anything. He orders lower decks cleared. Men scramble topside. Watertight doors seal. 5 minutes. The blast rips through the double bottom, penetrates the lower anti-torpedo bulge, 60 feet by 30 feet hole, flooding in the double bottom, a shell room, a magazine, all compartments up to the lower deck. Water cascades in. The ship shudders, settles, sinks. Bow down. The harbor is 48 feet deep. Valiant's draft before explosion. 33 feet, 5 inches forward, 32 feet, 7 inches aft. After explosion, 41 feet, 10 inches forward, 33 feet, 10 inches aft. The deck remains above water, barely, but the ship is finished. No buoyancy, no propulsion. Shock damage throughout. A turret traversing mechanism distorted. Electrical systems failed. Admiral Cunningham stands on Queen Elizabeth's quarterdeck. The explosion throws him 5 feet into the air. The charge beneath Sagona detonates. The stern disintegrates. Metal flies skyward. Oil ignites. Fire spreads. HMS Jervis, rafted alongside, absorbs the blast. The destroyer's hull ruptures. Water floods compartments. The ship lists. Sagona burns. Jervis fights for survival. 0604 hours. 4 minutes after Valiant. HMS Queen Elizabeth explodes. The mine was positioned 5 feet beneath the keel. Suspended perfectly from the bilge keels, the blast demolishes B boiler room. Damages double bottom and anti-torpedo bulges over 190 feet by 60 feet. Catastrophic flooding. The ship settles onto the harbor floor, deck above water. But operational status, 0. 8 men dead. 8 members of Queen Elizabeth's crew killed in the explosion. The first casualties, the only casualties. De La Pen's warning saved hundreds. Don't know how it happened, don't know how many attackers, don't know if more mines remain. Cunningham orders both battleships kept at their moorings, maintains normal routines, marine bands play, morning color ceremony proceeds, sunset ceremony continues. From the air, both ships appear operational, decks above water, crews moving, flags flying. The deception works, for weeks. The Italians don't know if the mission succeeded. All 6 men captured before the explosions. No confirmation, no intelligence, no evidence. HMS Valiant sits in Admiralty Floating Dock No. 5 on December 21st. Emergency repairs, can't move until April 1942, then sails to Durban, South Africa. Full repairs from April 15th to July 7th, 1942, returns to service August 42. 6 months disabled. HMS Queen Elizabeth undergoes temporary repairs at Alexandria until late June 42, then sails to the United States, Norfolk Naval Shipyard. Full refit and repairs until June 1943. 1 year completed in Britain afterward. 18 months total disability. HMS Jervis repairs in Alexandria. Returns to operational status by January's end, 1 month down. Sagona, towed back to England. Repairs not completed until 1946, 4 years. The tanker is essentially destroyed. Admiral Cunningham reports to First Lord of the Admiralty Dudley Pound. The result is a disaster. Winston Churchill speaks to Parliament in secret session. April 23rd, 1942. Both ships were sunk on an even keel. They looked all right from the air. The enemy were for some time unaware of the success of their attack. But Churchill is wrong. The Italian High Command issues bulletins January 8th and 9th, 1942. Queen Elizabeth and Valiant heavily damaged. The Regia Marina knows. Naval supremacy shifts. The Central Mediterranean belongs to Italy. 6 months. From December 41 to June 42, Italian convoys reached North Africa. Rommel receives fuel, receives ammunition, receives reinforcements, pushes toward Egypt, takes Tobruk, reaches El Alamein, 60 miles from Alexandria. The closest Axis forces ever get to the Suez Canal. This script uses Admiral Bragadin's 1957 historical analysis, the Italian Navy in World War II, Jack Green and Alessandro Massagnani's 1998, The Naval War in the Mediterranean, published by Chatham Publishing, and official British Admiralty records including damage. Reports from HMS Valiant and Queen Elizabeth archived at the National Archives in Richmond, London, under file reference ADM 197 series, documenting Queen Elizabeth's draft measurements before and after explosion, showing the ship resting on a 48-foot harbor floor with decks barely above waterline. Now back to the information. Italy signs armistice with allies. De La Penne receives an offer: join the allies, fight against Germany. He accepts. Returns to duty as a frogman. June 22nd, 1944. Joint Italian-British operation. A team of British and Italian divers boards the Italian destroyer Grecale. Target: La Spezia Harbor. German-held. 2 Italian cruisers anchored there, Gorizia and Bolzano. Germans plan to scuttle them to block the harbor entrance. De La Penne and his team swim in, place charges. Both cruisers sink before the Germans can move them. The harbor stays open. May 1945. War ends. De La Penne receives Italy's highest military decoration, Gold Medal of Military Valor, equivalent to Victoria Cross. The ceremony takes place in Taranto. The man pinning the medal, Admiral Charles Morgan, former captain of HMS Valiant. The ship De La Penne sank. Morgan requested the privilege, wanted to honor the man personally, spoke of De La Penne's courage, his chivalry, his warning that saved 800 British sailors. Morgan tried to secure a British decoration for De La Penne during the war. The request was denied, but Morgan remembered. When the war ended, he ensured De La Penne received recognition. Independent candidate, vice admiral rank achieved. In 1957, the Italian Navy names its new destroyer class after him. 2 vessels, Luigi Durand de la Penne and Francesco Mimbelli. He dies January 17, 1992. Genoa, age 77, the city where he was born. Spartaco Shergat also serves the Allied cause after armistice, returns to Italy, participates in the War of Liberation, Assault Vehicles Group, post-war, elected to Italian Parliament, MSI Party, far right, serves multiple terms, dies in Trieste, 1996, cancer, age 76. In 2019, the Italian Navy launches the 9th FREMM frigate, named Spartaco Shergat, commissioned 2023. The Italian newspaper La Repubblica publishes obituary, Addio al Palombaro Eroe, farewell to the hero diver, the men who broke 2 battleships with their hands. Ships in harbor should keep propellers turning slowly in reverse, creates current, frustrates swimmers. Simple, effective. Cunningham remarks, "It is a pity we did not think of it before. But pity doesn't restore battleships, doesn't erase 6 months without heavy units, doesn't stop Rommel's advance. The raid changes everything." The unit sinks or damages 72,190 tons of Allied warships, 130,572 tons of merchant ships. Total, over 200,000 tons. 4 major warships sunk: HMS Valiant, HMS Queen Elizabeth, both refloated but disabled, HMS York, heavy cruiser wrecked at Suda Bay, HMS Arridge, destroyer damaged, HMS Jervis damaged, 20 merchant ships sunk or damaged, including supply ships and tankers critical to Mediterranean operations. The unit receives Italy's highest collective honor, Golden Medal of Military Valor, individual decorations, 29 gold medals, 104 silver medals, 33 bronze medals, all for valor in the face of the enemy. No Italian unit in World War II achieves comparable results with such minimal resources. 6 men, 3 torpedoes, 1 night, 2 battleships, the mathematics of asymmetric warfare written in cold harbor water. British production dramatizes the attack's opening sequence. The Valiant, 1962, British film about HMS Valiant's damage. I Sette dell'Orsa Maggiore, 1953. Italian production features actual Decima MAS veterans as support actors. The story resonates because it's true. Because it happened. Because 6 men accomplished what an entire fleet could not. Britain fights alone in the Mediterranean, loses Ark Royal on November 13th, loses Barham on November 25th, loses Force K ships on December 18th, then loses the Alexandria battleships on December 19th. 4 major naval losses in 5 weeks. The Royal Navy bleeds from multiple wounds, each one considered impossible, each one executed by enemies the British considered inferior. The Japanese at Pearl Harbor, the Germans with U-boats, the Italians with frogmen. The lesson: asymmetric warfare defeats conventional superiority when executed with precision, training, courage, and operational security. The Decima MAS trained for months, rehearsed in identical conditions, studied target photos, memorized escape routes, accepted the extremely problematical return, every detail planned, every contingency considered, then executed despite catastrophic equipment failures. De La Penne pushes a dead torpedo alone. Bianchi faints from oxygen poisoning. Martellotta vomits from exposure. Yet all 3 teams place their charges. All 3 charges detonate on schedule. All 3 targets struck. The mission succeeds because the men refuse to fail. But the boom opens for friendly destroyers. When the nets don't reach the harbor floor, the patrol boats can't detect silent electric motors. The depth charges explode randomly, not systematically. Every defense has a gap. The Italians find every gap, exploit every gap, win through every gap. Cunningham writes later, "One cannot but admire the cold-blooded bravery and enterprise of these Italians." He's right. But bravery doesn't sink battleships. Training sinks battleships. Discipline sinks battleships. Refusal to quit when the torpedo dies, when the oxygen fails, when the mission seems impossible. That's what sinks battleships. 6 men who keep going when everything breaks. Flooding controlled but permanent. The explosion blows a 60-foot by 30-foot hole through double bottom and lower bulge. Shock damage throughout the ship. No casualties because De La Penne warns Captain Morgan 10 minutes before detonation. Gives Morgan time to clear lower decks. Seal watertight compartments. Save 800 lives. Then returns to his cell, sits directly above the mine, waits for the explosion, survives. The mine was perfectly placed, suspended from bilge keels, detonated at optimal depth, maximum damage, minimum warning. Marseilles and Shergat executed textbook placement, then walked away. Escaped Alexandria, made it to Rosetta, 40 miles, only to be captured by Egyptian police for acting suspicious. The mission succeeds, the escape fails, they spend the war in captivity, but they broke Queen Elizabeth. That's what matters. The destroyer Jervis, rafted alongside, absorbs blast fragments, hull breached, flooding begins. Jervis lists, fights for survival. Sagona burns for hours, eventually sinks, not raised until 1946, 4 years in the harbor, a burned out hulk, a tomb. A monument to what 6 men accomplished. British officers ask different questions, more specific questions, questions that reveal the truth. The mission worked, both battleships disabled, the Mediterranean fleet broken, naval supremacy lost. Queen Elizabeth and Valiant heavily damaged. Confirms the raid's success, publicly. The British try to maintain the deception, keep both ships at their moorings, normal routines, flags flying. But intelligence doesn't lie. Reconnaissance photos don't lie. The battleships don't move, don't sortie. Don't engage. The Regia Marina controls the sea lanes. Convoys reach North Africa. Rommel advances. The Africa Corps pushes toward Egypt, reaches El Alamein, 60 miles from Alexandria, close enough to see the smoke from the burning city. HMS Valiant returns to service August 1942, 8 months after the raid. HMS Queen Elizabeth returns June 1943, 18 months after the raid. By then, the Mediterranean War is turned. The United States Navy arrives. Operation Torch lands in North Africa, November 42. Rommel retreats. El Alamein becomes a British victory. The Axis loses North Africa by May 43. Italy loses the Mediterranean, loses the war, loses everything. But for 6 months, from December 41 to June 42, Italy controlled the central Mediterranean. Because 6 men rode 3 torpedoes into Alexandria Harbor, placed 3 mines, changed the balance of naval power, 1 time for Rommel, 1 supplies for the Africa Corps. Won a temporary victory that feels permanent when you're living through it. The same depth where HMS Valiant and Queen Elizabeth rested on their hulls with decks above water. Modern sonar would find the scars, the blast craters, the evidence of what happened when 670 pounds of explosive detonates 15 feet below a battleship's keel. The lesson stays relevant. Asymmetric warfare, small teams, high training, precision targets, catastrophic results. The technology changes, the principle doesn't. In 1941, it's human torpedoes and frogmen. Today, it's unmanned underwater vehicles and autonomous systems. But the mathematics remain the same. 6 men, 3 weapons, 2 battleships, 1 night. Total cost to Italy, 6 trained operators captured but alive, 3 torpedoes expended, 1 submarine exposed but survived. Total cost to Britain, 2 battleships disabled for months, 8 sailors dead. Mediterranean naval supremacy lost. North Africa convoys threatened. Strategic initiative surrendered. The calculus favors the attacker. Always has, always will. How did they place mines on 2 battleships undetected? The answers are uncomfortable. The boom opened for friendly destroyers. The nets didn't reach the bottom. The patrol boats couldn't detect submerged electric motors. The depth charges exploded randomly, not in patterns. Security assumed threats came from outside, not from swimmers entering behind friendly ships. Every assumption failed. Every defense failed. Because the Italians studied every defense, found every weakness, exploited every weakness. The gold medal ceremony, May 1945. Admiral Morgan pins the decoration on De La Penne's chest. Morgan speaks of courage, of chivalry, of the warning that saved 800 British sailors. Morgan praises the enemy who sank his ship, the enemy who broke his fleet, the enemy who changed the war. Because military professionals respect military excellence, even when it defeats them, especially when it defeats them. Della Penne honored the rules of war, attacked military targets, warned of imminent danger, saved lives unnecessarily. Morgan recognized that, rewarded that, documented that. When the torpedo died, when the oxygen poisoned them, when the cold water soaked through torn suits, they kept going, kept pushing, kept swimming, kept fighting, until the mines were placed, until the timers were set, until the job was done. Not the sinking, the hours before, the cold water, the dead torpedo, the unconscious diver, the torn suit, the exhaustion, the hypothermia. The manual pushing of 1.5 tons of dead weight through 15 feet of water toward a battleship surrounded by patrol boats and anti-torpedo nets in an enemy harbor in the middle of the night with no backup and no hope of rescue. Those hours, those decisions. That refusal to accept failure, that's what sank HMS Valiant and HMS Queen Elizabeth, not the explosive, the men. Reaches HMS Valiant's double bottom in .003 seconds, penetrates the steel hull, floods a magazine, kills 8 men on HMS Queen Elizabeth, disables 2 battleships, shifts Mediterranean naval supremacy, changes the North Africa campaign, extends the war by months, costs thousands of additional lives, all because 6 Italian frogmen executed their mission despite catastrophic equipment failures and impossible odds. The mathematics don't lie. The harbor floor doesn't lie. The blast craters don't lie. Success is the only evidence that matters. And 6 men riding 3 pigs into Alexandria Harbor on December 19th, 1941, succeeded where an entire fleet failed for 18 months. The receipts are at the bottom of the harbor. Right where HMS Valiant and Queen Elizabeth came to rest in 48 feet of Mediterranean water with their decks barely above the surface and 670-pound holes blown through their hulls by men who refused to quit when everything went wrong. But the war does not end at 0600 hours. The war just begins. For the British, the question is no longer if they can be hit. The question is how. Admiral Cunningham demands answers. The Royal Navy, stunned by the loss of Prince of Wales and repulsed to Japanese aircraft 12 days prior, now faces a new reality. The battleship is vulnerable, not just to aircraft, not just to U-boats, but to men in the water. British divers descend into the black, oily water of Alexandria Harbor. The visibility is 0. They work by feel. Their hands find the hole in Valiant, a jagged tear, 60 feet long, 30 feet wide, big enough to drive a truck through. They find the hole in Queen Elizabeth, even larger. Catastrophic, 190 feet of devastation. They find the wreck of the Sagona, its stern gone. They find the damage to Jervis, the hull plates buckled. This is not sabotage from inside. This is not an aerial torpedo. This is an external charge, placed with precision, placed by hand. The search parties find debris, fragments of metal, a breathing apparatus, pieces of a 22-foot-long cylinder, a maiali. The evidence is conclusive. The Italians were inside the harbor. The implications are terrifying. If they did it once, they can do it again. Every British harbor in the Mediterranean is now a target. Malta, Gibraltar. Every anchorage is a potential tomb. The British learn fast. They adapt. They copy. The lesson is too expensive to ignore. Captain GM. Sladen, head of the Naval Experimental Establishment at Portsmouth, already has a prototype, a British version of the human torpedo. They call it the Chariot. The Alexandria raid accelerates everything. Britain forms its own underwater special operations unit, the 12th Submarine Flotilla. Frogmen, charioteers, the students of the Decima MAS. They train in secret. They study the Italian methods. They learn from the men who defeated them. The weapon of asymmetric warfare has changed hands, but the Decima Flottiglia MAS does not stop. The unit is not just 6 men. It is an idea. It is a philosophy, and it is commanded by Junio Valerio Borghese. Borghese loses his 3 best crews at Alexandria. He loses his submarine Scirè 10 months later, sunk by the British destroyer Ismay off Haifa, August 10th, 1942. 35 dead. Borghese does not stop. He finds new men, new methods, new targets. The new target is Gibraltar, the Rock, the gateway to the Mediterranean, as impenetrable as Alexandria, maybe more so. The British are paranoid now. Nets cover the harbor entrance. Patrol boats drop depth charges hourly. Propellers turn in reverse, creating currents. The maiali cannot drive in as they did at Alexandria. Borghese needs a new tactic. He finds one. Algeciras, Spain. Across the bay from Gibraltar, neutral territory. Anchored in the Algeciras harbor is the Ultera, an interned Italian merchant ship. Scuttled by her own crew in 1940. The ship is a wreck, ignored by British intelligence, watched by Spanish guards. Borghese sees an opportunity. He sends agents disguised as civilian technicians. Their mission, repair the Ultera for repatriation to Italy. The Spanish government agrees. The British watch, amused. The wreck is useless. The technicians are Decima MAS operatives. They work for months in secret. They cut a hole in the Ultera's hull, below the waterline. They build a secret compartment inside the flooded forward hold. A hidden base, a workshop, a launch bay. Right under the guns of Gibraltar, less than 2 miles away. Then they smuggle the maiali, in pieces, marked as spare parts for the ship's engines. They reassemble 3 human torpedoes inside the Ultera. July 13th, 1942, Operation Urania. 3 maiali slip out of the hole in Ultera's hull. They cross the bay. They penetrate the Gibraltar anchorage. The nets are useless. The base is inside the bay. The frogmen mined 4 merchant ships. Total tonnage, 11,000 tons. All 4 sink or are heavily damaged. The crews swim to Spanish territory, return to the Ultera, undetected. The British are baffled. How? Submarine? Aircraft? Sabotage? They double the patrols. They increase the depth charging. It doesn't matter. December 7th, 1942, 1 year after Pearl Harbor, Operation Forza. 3 more maiali launched from the Ultera. 3 more targets hit. Ocean Vanquisher, Narvik, Cameron. All sunk or grounded. 15,000 tons of shipping destroyed. The maial is not the only weapon. It is slow, 3 knots. It requires immense training. The Decima MAS diversifies. They develop the Motoscafo Turismo Modificato, the MTM, the explosive motorboat. A small, fast boat packed with 670 pounds of high explosive. The pilot aims the boat at the target ship, accelerates to full speed, 30 knots. Then, 450 feet from the target, he ejects. Jumps into the water on a small raft. The boat, now unmanned, speeds forward, hits the hull, detonates. March 26, 1941, Suda Bay, Crete. 6 MTMs launch from 2 destroyers. Their target, the British anchorage. They cross the boom defenses. They find their targets. Lieutenant Luigi Fagioni slams his MTM into the heavy cruiser HMS York. The explosion rips a hole in the cruiser's side. 2 boiler rooms flood. The engine room floods. York settles on the harbor floor, crippled, abandoned, a total loss. Another MTM hits the tanker Pericles, 8,000 tons. The tanker sinks. The mission is a perfect success. 6 pilots captured, 1 heavy cruiser destroyed. The Decima MAS bleeds the Royal Navy 1 ship at a time. Gibraltar, Alexandria, Suda Bay, Malta. They attack shipping in Algiers, in Turkey, in Palestine. They become a legend. A force that cannot be stopped. They prove that no harbor is safe, no battleship is invincible, no defense is perfect. Then comes September 8th, 1943. The armistice. Italy surrenders. The nation fractures. The king escapes south. Mussolini is rescued by German commandos. Forms the Italian Social Republic in the north, a German puppet state. The Decima Flottiglia MAS must choose. The unit splits in 2. Commander Borghese, the charismatic leader, the architect of Alexandria, makes his choice. He stays with Mussolini. He stays with the Germans. His unit keeps the name Decima MAS. But it is no longer just a naval unit. It becomes an infantry force, 25,000 strong. They fight against the Allies at Anzio, but mostly they fight against other Italians, the partisans. The Decima MAS becomes a brutal anti-partisan force, hunting, torturing, and executing Italian resistance fighters. The heroic legacy of Alexandria is buried under the atrocities of the Salo Republic. Borghese, the naval hero, becomes a fascist warlord. But not all follow him. Many, including Luigi Duran della Penne, honor the king, honor the armistice. They escape south. They join the Allies. They form a new unit, Maria Salto, the Italian co-belligerent navy. Della Penne, the man who sank Valiant, now offers his services to the British. The British accept. The students and the masters now work together. June 22nd, 1944, Operation Sweep. The target, La Spezia Harbor, the old home base of the Decima MAS, now held by the Germans. 2 Italian cruisers, Bolzano and Gorizia, are anchored there. The Germans plan to sink them in the harbor entrance. Block the Allies from using the port. De La Penne leads the mission. He doesn't use a maial. He uses a British chariot. The weapon his own raid inspired. He and his British counterparts slip into the harbor. They place their charges. Both cruisers sink at their moorings. The harbor stays open. The irony is complete. The man who started his war sinking British ships in Alexandria ends his war sinking Italian ships in La Spezia using a British weapon for the Allied cause. The war ends. The accounting begins. The Decima MAS of Borghese is disbanded, its reputation stained by civil war. Borghese is tried for war crimes, acquitted, becomes a figurehead for neo-fascist politics in post-war Italy. Dies in Spain in 1974. The Decima MAS of De La Penne is celebrated. The heroes of Alexandria, the liberators of La Spezia. The mathematics of their achievement remain staggering. From 1940 to 1943, the Decima MAS sank or disabled over 72,000 tons of Allied warships, over 130,000 tons of merchant shipping, 2 battleships, 1 heavy cruiser, 2 destroyers, 20 merchant ships, all with a handful of men, all with weapons built in a small workshop. The legacy is not the tonnage. The legacy is the idea that a single man, properly trained and equipped, can change the course of a naval campaign, the idea that no fortress is impenetrable. That audacity, combined with precision, trumps tonnage. This idea spreads. The British charioteers, the German Neger and Martyr human torpedoes, the Japanese kite and suicide torpedoes, all are descendants of the Italian maiali. The modern United States Navy SEALs trace their lineage directly back to these underwater demolition teams. The Frogman, born in the cold waters of La Spezia, perfected in the oily blackness of Alexandria, becomes a permanent fixture of modern warfare. The story ends where it began, with men in the water. The maiali is obsolete. The battleships are gone. The empires they fought for are dust. But the lesson of Alexandria endures, the lesson written by 6 men who refused to fail. The lesson that technology, armor, and firepower are meaningless against the courage and audacity of a few determined individuals. The lesson that the most powerful weapon in any arsenal is the human will. December 19th, 1941 proved it. The rest of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st confirmed it. The harbor floor at Alexandria is not just a grave, it is a classroom, and the lesson is still being taught.